Summer is winding down in my neighborhood, which means it's back to school. And today I'm focusing on foods that work when schedules get really busy and you're trying to get vegetables into the whole family, starting with my spinach feta dip that you can just serve with any raw vegetables, crudité style, or you can pack it in a lunchbox. Followed up by some garlicky chicken soup that's loaded with spinach and making some easy rolls using pizza dough. And to finish it off, the house granola bars made with oats, almonds, dried cherries, and coconut oil. Let's get started on the dip, which I mentioned is a spinach dip. To make it easy, I'm using frozen spinach. This is a 10-ounce bag of chopped frozen spinach. And the thing about frozen spinach is it's full of liquid, and if you're making a dip, you need to get that liquid out, or you're gonna have more like a soupy dip. So all I have is a nice piece of cheesecloth, and you just wanna really squeeze all that extra moisture out. Get every last bit out there. Ooh, that's pretty good. That's a lot of liquid. You can imagine what that would do to a dip. All right, now check out the spinach. Perfect. All right, just gonna break it up a little bit. All right, that spinach looks good and dry. Time to build the dip in the food processor. Here I have equal parts sour cream and mayonnaise, and some feta. The feta really lends its flavor and makes this dip feel unique. So I choose a good feta. I like the French feta, but Greek feta, of course, is classic. And you wanna crumble the feta into the food processor because we're gonna make this dip nice and smooth. All right. Just kidding. Now a little bit of garlic. To make sure the garlic works its flavor into the dip without any big chunks, I'm gonna use a rasp style grater. It's just 2 cloves of garlic. Last but not least, a little bit of lemon zest. I washed the lemon already. And you can kind of add as much or as little as you want. I like a very lemony dip because the lemon flavor, even though we're using the zest, it seems to fade over time. All right, now we're gonna blend this until it's nice and smooth. All right, I'm gonna stop it just to scrape down the sides, make sure there's no clumps of feta left behind. Oh, it smells so good. Now, time for the spinach. You can just stir the spinach in if you like big pieces of spinach, but I like pulsing it in because I like sort of how it evenly disperses. So, using that cheesecloth as a little funnel, I'm just gonna pulse it in a couple times. There we go. Now you notice I didn't add any salt. That's because the feta is really salty and the dip just doesn't need it. All right, into a storage bowl it goes, because you have to let it refrigerate at least an hour, but you can make this up to 2 days ahead of time. And like I said earlier, I love putting this into lunch boxes with a few carrot sticks or as an after-school snack, just taking little bits out as I go. All right. Oh, all right. Now, we didn't season it with pepper, which I'm gonna do right now. All right, so as I mentioned, we're not gonna season it with salt, but you do wanna season it with a little pepper. Maybe a little extra pepper. Depends on your taste buds. Just gonna whisk that in. Perfect. Into the fridge it goes. Now to serve the dip, I kind of portion it out as I go because it makes a lot. So here I have a little crudité for 3, which is a classic veg side at our house. Quite frankly, because I just love raw vegetables, almost more than cooked. And with the dip, it makes sure everyone really digs in. Save the rest of that dip for later. Carrot sticks, snow peas, tomatoes, which my daughter won't eat, but my husband and I will. The big chips of cucumber are kind of key because it's a nice way to get a lot of dip on your vegetable. These snow peas are my favorite. It's the perfect after-school snack.
At Cooks Illustrated, we're food nerds. That's why every recipe we develop involves research, cooking science, and rigorous testing by our team of expert test cooks. Only the highest rated recipes earn a place in our award-winning magazine. Every issue features our latest recipes and discoveries, cooking tips, and equipment and ingredient reviews. Our step-by-step photos and hand-drawn illustrations show you exactly how to succeed. So, are you ready to become the best cook you know? Subscribe to Cooks Illustrated magazine at cooksillustrated.com today.
Time for the soup and the garlic rolls, which are actually monkey bread because the rolls all bake together in a cake pan. You pull them apart like wild monkeys and they are that good. Now the whole menu requires a lot of garlic, and I'm not gonna mess around with peeling garlic cloves. I bought the pre-peeled stuff, and I'm gonna use a mini food processor to help me get it all to a nice mince because you want a little more than half a cup of garlic. And I promise you, you won't have extreme garlic breath, and this recipe really isn't too hot. But it's great when the weather starts getting cold because it just feels like a balm, you know? All that garlic just tastes right. All right, using my little chopper here. Give it a little scrape down. All right, and that is as easy as making half a cup of perfectly chopped garlic. I know, it's kind of amazing. If you use a lot of garlic, these mini choppers are invaluable. All right, so we're gonna use most of this in this soup. Little of it is gonna go into a garlic butter that we're gonna drizzle over the rolls after they're baked. So here I have a little saucepan. Just gonna make a little heated garlic butter. Starts with butter, not surprising. We need about 3 tablespoons of butter. There we go. We're just gonna melt it in a little skillet here. And we're gonna add a little bit of garlic, about a tablespoon, which is about 3 good-sized cloves. There we go. The rest of that's going in the soup. This doesn't take a long time to cook. You really just wanna soften the garlic, let it release its flavor into the warm butter. Oh, that smell. Oh, that's about it. I'm gonna turn the heat off. I'm just gonna leave the butter right in this skillet until we need it to drizzle over the rolls. I'm gonna add just a little bit of parsley. Now this is off heat, but the parsley will also release its flavor right into the butter. Oh yeah, that's the smell of good rolls. All right, push that to the back of the stove for later. Let's take a look at the dough we're using for this monkey bread. It's just pizza dough. So we're gonna break this dough down into about 32 pieces. We're gonna make little balls. All right, for this, you can use a scale. I've definitely have used a scale. Each ball would be about ½ an ounce, or you could just eye it. Here, let's flatten this out. So we'll go in half. All right, and then we'll go in half again. And then we'll go in half again. All right, 8 pieces, 8 into 32 is 4 if I'm not mistaken. So each of these guys will get cut into 4 pieces, and this is when I pretty much eye it. To turn all these little pieces of dough into monkey bread, we're gonna start by shaping them into balls. Now here's how I do it. I take each piece and I kind of pull it over my thumb, get the ball shape going. And then I gather all those edges together, I pinch them closed, and I sort of drag them on the work surface. That just makes the dough ball really nice and taut with a smooth top. You just arrange those into an oiled cake pan and you're good to go. Last 2 pieces, might as well do double fisted, you know what I mean? Although my left is a little weaker. Let's see. Na-na-na-na. All right. Into the pan they go. Now you have to let this dough rise. It should almost double in size, and that can take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending on the temperature of your kitchen and the temperature of the dough. So we're just gonna cover this with plastic wrap so it doesn't dry out, and set this aside while we start the soup. I have my favorite soup pot over here. Let's pull it forward. I'm gonna start with a little bit of olive oil. Oh, that looks good. Let that oil heat up just a little bit, and we're gonna add all of this garlic. That should be about ½ a cup of garlic, and that would taste overwhelming if you didn't cook it first, but it doesn't need to be cooked for very long. Just 3 or 4 minutes is all it takes. You can smell the change in the garlic when it's ready to move on because it starts out a little bit harsh, almost acrid, but then it mellows out and it almost smells buttery, and that's the flavor we want in the soup. All right, so that was over lower heat. Now I'm gonna crank it up to medium. We're gonna add the soup vegetables, also known as mirepoix. Now mirepoix is simply onions, celery, and carrots, and the ratio is 2 parts onion to 1 part carrot and celery. That all goes in the pot with a little bit of salt. All right, now we're gonna cook this till they're nice and soft. Takes about 10 minutes. The pot is starting to get some nice fond on it, and that is a really important flavor when you're making a simple soup. Now, time to add some herbs. This is 2 teaspoons of fresh minced thyme. I'm gonna hold on to those bay leaves because they're not going yet. Once the vegetables and the pot have a nice fond on it, time to add the chicken broth and a few bay leaves, and really use your wooden spoon to scrape any of those brown bits back into the pot. She's up to a boil. Time to add the wild rice. I gave this rice a quick rinse just to get off any of that dust before adding it right into the soup. Oh yeah. I noticed it wasn't wild rice blend, it was just straight wild rice. And that takes a while to cook, anywhere from 40 to 50 minutes. All right, gonna put the lid on, leave a little bit of a crack so it doesn't boil over. I'm gonna monitor it as it cooks until the rice is tender. These rolls have risen and they're ready to be baked. Final topping before they go into the oven, a little bit of olive oil. Just wanna make sure it's nice and even all over the top. Doesn't need a lot. Oh, all right, nicely coated with olive oil, a little bit of salt and pepper over the top. Oh yeah. All these rolls are so good. These are ready for the oven, 400 degrees, anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes. That's gonna taste good. Time to take a look at the soup. Check that wild rice. Should be pretty close to done, if not completely tender. Perfect. A little bit of chew, but definitely tender all the way through. Now we're gonna finish with some chicken and some spinach. Here I have 3 cups of baby spinach, which I love for soups. All you have to do is give it a quick wash. It doesn't need anything else. Right into the pot it goes. And some chicken. This is 8 ounces of chicken breast that I just cut into small soupy sized pieces. This is just gonna simmer 4 or 5 minutes until the chicken is cooked through and the spinach is wilted. And I'm gonna keep my eye out for those bay leaves. There's one. Might as well remove them from the pot now. They've done their business. There you go. Almost eating time. Oh, man, do those look good or what? Oh, hear that? That's a good topping. All right, these are ripping hot. Gonna let them cool for a few minutes before we add the garlic butter. Now that soup should be done. Oh, the spinach is nice and wilted, that chicken. They're such small pieces, they cook through very quickly. So that is perfect. One last addition to this soup is a good hefty amount of chopped parsley. Just adds a nice fresh flavor. And we already got rid of the bay leaves, so we don't have to look out for those. Oh, that's a bowl that will soothe whatever ails you. All right, let's get this a little closer. And now the rolls have had a few minutes to sit. We're gonna pop them out of this pan onto a platter. Oh yeah, nice and hot. Oh, the pull-apart rolls are so much fun. Let's put this up here. Now for the garlic butter. The other great thing about leaving this in the skillet is if it hardens, because it gets cold outside here in the Northeast, and that butter could chill down if your kitchen's a little cold, easy enough to reheat it. These rolls do not mess around. The butter gets right down in between them. Oh, you for my plate. This is what I crave. Taking the garlic roll, dipping it into that garlic soup. Good dough, butter, garlic. It's amazing what you can do with pizza dough. Now for this soup. Oh, it is such a satisfying and comforting soup. The garlic is kind of round and buttery. The chicken is perfectly poached. And I love how easy this soup is, especially if you buy pre-peeled garlic and use a little food processor. I mean, it comes together in basically an hour. Perfect for a busy school week. Man, that's good.
We'll get you right back to the video. Check out Cook's Country's newest book, The Complete Cook's Country TV Show Cookbook.
Over 16 seasons and more than 600 recipes are condensed into this cookbook, jam-packed with every recipe we feature on the show. plus stories, tips, and reviews.
Go on the road with Cook's Country and tour the U.S. through food. Get inspired by dishes from restaurants, regions, and chefs all over America.
All in this one convenient cookbook.
To order your copy of the complete Cook's Country TV show cookbook, scan the QR code or visit cookscountry.com to continue your Cook's Country journey.
Now it's time to make granola bars, which is a house standard here, because my husband and my daughter eat them constantly. Now my husband got my daughter hooked on the store-bought ones. They have chocolate chips, they're on the chewy side, and I didn't like all the ingredient list. There's a lot of junk in there, so I started making my own with almonds, cherries, and coconut oil, because I love coconut. So it starts with the almonds. This is 1.5 cups of sliced almonds, and I've used the sliced almonds because they're nice and thin, unlike sliver to whole. And I'm gonna give them a quick chop. Get some nice fine pieces, but you don't want dust. I have tried to do this in the food processor, just a quick pulse. Doesn't work. You get a nice fine meal and some big pieces. What you want is a more evenly sized piece. All right, one more run through. Okay. That looks perfect. Now we're gonna add this to a big old bowl of oats. Now these are old-fashioned rolled oats, not the quick cooking stuff, which I've tried to use because I had some on hand. They did not turn out as good. They almost have a mealy, sort of stale flavor and texture. So you want the old-fashioned oats. That's 6 cups of oats. In go the almonds. Oh yeah. A little bit of salt for flavor. Just a little bit. And now we're gonna add the coconut in the form of oil. This is coconut oil, 1/2 cup, which in this part of the country means you have to melt it first, which is why it's in a little pot. If you're in a warmer state, of course, it's probably already melted in your cupboard. All right, so we're just gonna stir this all together. Coconut oil. That is the smell. Now the key to making a good granola bar is toasting the oats and almonds first. And I'm not talking a little bit of toasting on the stovetop. I'm talking full-on toasting in the oven at least 1/2 hour. In fact, I wrote in the recipe, do not under toast, because if you do, the granola bars just turn out tasting raw. So if you're gonna err on the side of over toasting. Onto a rim baking sheet this goes. All right, oh, it smells so good. Man, I love coconut. Okay, into a hot oven, 375 degrees, again, about 1/2 hour. You wanna stir it every so often so that it toasts nice and evenly. Now, time to make the glue for the granola bars, which consists of honey and brown sugar. Now, you want equal parts of each, about 3/4 of a cup. And I make no claim that these granola bars are healthy. They are very sweet, but they're really good. And they have no preservatives, which is what I really cared about. I'm gonna add the brown sugar. We're just gonna melt these two together over on the stove. It takes a few minutes. Oh, these are so fragrant. You can smell the coconut oil. All right, and you can see how nice and dark they are. That's what you're looking for. Let those cool for just a minute while we finish the glue. Now again, this is the honey and the brown sugar. We're gonna add the flavorings right to this mixture. And you want a decent amount of cinnamon. So about a tablespoon, thereabouts. My tablespoon measure doesn't fit in the jar, so I'm using 3 teaspoons. Now we're gonna add a hefty dose of vanilla, a generous tablespoon, more like a tablespoon and a half. Yeah. When the vanilla and the cinnamon hit that sugar, that's, oh, it smells good. Let that sit for a minute. Let's grab these hot oats. Now, I've learned you need a really big bowl to make this happen without making a huge mess, and a nice spatula. All right, set this aside. All right, now for the glue. Oh, Ian's gonna be so happy there's a fresh batch of these. Remember the first, when I was developing this recipe, I was really developing it, you know, as I said, for him and my daughter. The first few batches were okay, but when I hit this batch, he just said, oh man, you nailed it. And he ate almost the entire tray in 2 sittings. He just couldn't get enough of this flavor. So you want to make sure that honey mixture is really nicely mixed in. Whoops. That's why I use a big bowl, right? Now for the cherries, these are dried cherries, and these are beautiful dried cherries from the store down the street. I gave them a quick chop. I like some big pieces, some little pieces. And Rice Krispies, 2 cups of Rice Krispies. This just adds that crispy texture and some sort of mouthfeel in the granola bar. And I remember the batch where I added them. I'll never make granola bars without Rice Krispies. It just lightens everything up. Now to turn this into granola bars, not just loose granola, it matters how you shape them. All right, so here I have a nice big rim baking sheet lined with foil and greased. I learned that the hard way. You definitely need it to be greased. We're gonna dump all this mixture right into the center of the tray. Scraping out as much as I can. Okay. Now spread it out, and it's all about the pressing. The more firmly you press this and compact it into a bar, the better off you are. So I'm gonna start by just spreading it out evenly. My daughter was bummed that I swapped the cherries in for the chocolate chips. I tried doing chocolate chips once, mini chips. I kind of just melted. I was trying to use the smaller ones for less chocolate. Next batch, I'm gonna try to add some chips. I think you'd have to sprinkle them over the top and press them in right now, is what I think I'd have to do. All right, so now this is the trick. Here I have a piece of parchment and a second tray. I'm just gonna press as hard as I can to really compress all that granola. I'm on my tiptoes. All right, there we go. Now go back with my hands, kind of move the parchment around and really press down on the sides. The ends are always a bit crumbly. It's like a rough edge, which I kind of like. But you really want to be able to cut them and have them hold together. If they're crumbly, they taste just as good. But it's nice if they're in a bar shape, because then it's kind of like a to-go snack, right? They hold together better in lunch boxes and so on. All right. Oh, that feels pretty good. Oh yeah, nice and flat. These are ready for the oven, 300 degrees, about half an hour. And it really won't change much in color, but what you'll notice is that it holds together better. Once the granola bars are fully baked, you want to let them cool for about 15 minutes and then take a knife or a bench scraper and score where you want the granola bars. I try to get them cut evenly, but I usually have a few wonky ones in there. Then you want to let them cool completely before you pack them up. These granola bars have cooled completely, and I did score them, but I'm just gonna cut them again now that they're cooled. Just make sure that they kind of pop off the tray nice and easy. All right. I cut them mostly evenly. There's a few wonky sizes in there, but that's how you know they're homemade. All right, so this is how I store them in an airtight container. I'm sure they'd hold for a while, but honestly, they're usually gone within days, so I don't really know how long they'd hold. I'm guessing 2 weeks at least. Oh, I love it when it looks like that, kind of craggy on the outside, like you know that's homemade. Ian's gonna be psyched. All right. These are for the pantry, and these are just for today. When Marta comes home from school, Ian comes home from work. Oh, look at this one. That's homemade. Oh no, a part fell off. These are the wonky sized ones. I should really eat those so nobody has to see them. Yes, yes. They're just the right combination of chewy and crisp. The almonds and the coconuts, and you get that hit of dried cherry. And I used a lot of vanilla and cinnamon, but it's really in the background. The honey is what really comes through the most. I also wanted to show you how I package them for Marta's lunchbox because they're quite sticky, and I have found that they do stick to everything if you just kind of toss them in. So what I do is I buy these. These are parchment sandwich bags. I use them for all sorts of snacks, really. And you put one in there, and I kind of just fold it up. And I take a little bit of string, butcher's twine, because it's always in the kitchen. Of course, I tie a little bow. And you know I get the Sharpie out and write, I love you, with a big heart from Mom. Yep, that's how I do it. But the benefit is it really doesn't stick the rest of the lunch because that honey, it didn't hold back. See you next time. Yeah, he practices. He practices when we're not home, we're told. If you're ready to take your cooking to the next level, head over to americastestkitchen.com and get a free trial of our ATK Essential membership. While you're there, you can sign up for our free email newsletters and download our app. So, what are you waiting for?